He sleeps on his side, yet his body never fully lets go. Even with his eyes closed, his paws remain tense, as if he might need to move at any moment. His breathing isn't steady. It stops, starts again, then pauses once more. I move closer and gently place my hand on him. I don't say his name or press down, I simply stay. After a few seconds, his body begins to respond. First, his breathing shifts, then the heaviness eases. It doesn't happen every time, but when it does, you can feel the difference. At the beginning, he spent much of his time that way, lying quietly, but never truly relaxed. He would remain in bed for long periods, yet his body stayed on guard. Eventually, the strain showed itself in other ways. Tufts of fur came loose with little effort. It wasn't sudden. It had been building over time. When I sat beside him on the floor, I rarely did much. Sometimes I would slowly stroke his fur. Other times, I would just sit nearby. He tolerated my presence, but his body remained rigid. His eyes were always too watchful, as though he expected something to go wrong. Gradually, I began to notice small changes, a deeper sigh, a different kind of weight when he leaned against me. He was still tense, but no longer bracing himself every second. It wasn't consistent, but it was real. Walks made it even more noticeable. When he spotted another dog, his whole body seemed to brighten. His tail wagged and he stepped forward, but the instant he became aware of a person, everything changed. He froze, then retreated. His body folded inward again. There was a clear pattern. Then the shelter told us about Poppy. She had come from the same place he had. We didn't see it as a fix, just something that might fit naturally into his world. Their first meeting was gentle, slow approaches, exchanged scents, respectful pauses. Yet his reaction was unlike anything I had seen before. His tail wagged nonstop. He moved closer than he usually dared. He leaned into her and stayed. That first night when I checked on them, they were already asleep side by side, pressed together. His body felt heavier, the tightness in his shoulders gone. It was the first uninterrupted rest I had witnessed in him. With time, the rhythm of his days began to change. There were still tense moments. Loud noises made him shrink, and unfamiliar places sent him searching for closeness, curling into laps, tucking himself beneath benches, finding the nearest point of contact. But now, when he leaned in, he remained there. At home, new habits formed. He climbed onto the couch with less hesitation. He lay comfortably on his side, sometimes even rolling onto his back. Occasionally, he would come over and rest his head on my lap. The weight settled gradually, as though his body were learning a new way to be. Nights aren't always perfectly restful. Some days his body still stirs more than it should. But when I draw near and remain beside him, the change comes more quickly now. His breathing slows, the heaviness returns. When I see him sleeping beneath a blanket, his head draped over someone's arm, his body completely slack, I understand it didn't happen all at once. It was built piece by piece, gesture by gesture, presence by presence. His body once didn't know how to relax. Now, in many moments, it does.